Hi, everyone. So today I'm very excited because I have a very special guest with me. His name is Artem Boytsov. He's a spiritual teacher. And so I'm going to let Artem talk about his community, his work, and then later I'll just ask him some questions. So you have the floor.
Hello, Steve. Thank you very much. It's great to be here. So yes, as you mentioned, I'm a spiritual teacher. My name is Artem Boytsov. I think you found me. Was it through Quora or through
Yeah,
YouTube?
Cora.
Through Quora, like maybe like 3 or 5 years ago, something like that.
Oh, no, I think it was less than 2 years ago.
Oh, less than 2 years ago. Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. So yes, I there was a time when I was writing a lot in Quora. I actually still plan to come back to it, but I wrote a lot of answers, more than a few hundred. I think it was 500 or 600, something like this. Then I later categorized it on my website, truefreedom.org. I trust you will post the links in the description. So this website contains the categorized collection of my core answers, basically. But that's how it started. So I started writing on Quora a long time ago. It was in 2019, about 2 3 years after my awakening in 2017, and then later I started posting things on YouTube. So I do. We created a Discord community. So my wife and I manage the community. We do retreats. So right now, it evolved over the course of 5 6 years. It evolved into a lot of things that we do. So I do quite a bunch of things. So first of all, there's my writings, there's my YouTube videos. We do retreats in Northern California. We sometimes even do retreats in Europe. I see students at my home from time to time. So I live in Northern California. If you're in Northern California, then you're welcome to visit me. And also we're on a Discord community of practitioners, and we do private satsangs there. I sometimes engage in conversations there, but mostly people use each other and connect with each other, to give each other, to share advice, tips, give each other understanding and support. But we do private satsangs there, where lots of work is taking place. And on YouTube, I do satsangs every second week, public satsangs, which everybody can join. Uh, Yes. So, and I also, I almost forgot. Yeah, and I also do one-on-one sessions. So I do one-on-one sessions. It's possible to schedule them with me through my website. On one-on-one sessions, we engage in a variety of practices. So there's a wide array of offerings that I offer. the, the offerings that I trapped myself there. So I don't know how I could have gotten out of this one. There's okay. So and yes, so I specialize on helping people awaken, and even more importantly, I specialize in helping awakened individuals to take their journey further, to uh, illuminate the remaining hidden false beliefs, limiting beliefs, and to help them free themselves even deeper. So it's a long journey. The initial awakening is the end of one journey and the beginning of another. And so I try to be of help to those who had a glimpse or maybe an abiding realization and want to deepening it, and still eliminate the remaining suffering and free themselves deeper and deeper and deeper. That's also what we do on our retreats. So yeah,
Thank you,
that's what I
Artem,
do.
for sharing that. I just wanted to share something. When I found you on Quora, it was
Mm.
interesting because I had been for a while in a little bit in the woo-woo spirituality and all these things.
Mm.
And I was loving it, watching the videos, and one day suddenly I couldn't stand them anymore, and I even wanted to enjoy them, but I couldn't. And then very quickly I found you on Quora, and I guess I was ready. And when I read that the levels of dreaming, and that the second level of dreaming is that you experience yourself as a soul, I immediately understood that meant that the soul has never existed, and then immediately psychosis, and there was so much fear. So that's just an example to show you how when you're ready and you read something like that, from that moment on, it just got deeper and deeper, more difficult as well. But then it just unravels. So that's, some words can have that impact.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, and it was as I was undergoing this journey, it was my experience as well. It's just exactly the right time when I was ready, either through someone else's words, or I would be discontent, dissatisfied. I would intuit that there's something more, so I'd be seeking out some teachers, and some saying would cut through something, and I would let it go deeper. And it always there's always some fear of deeper relaxation, of deeper let go, always. Yeah. And I also wanted to mention that it's very natural what you are describing, because the woo-woo spirituality, it is helpful at a certain stage, but there's still a lot of bullshit there, and on some level we understand it. There's still a lot of deceit, and uh, probably the most accurate, the most potent, the most impactful way to actually describe spirituality is that uh, it is literally truth seeking. It is literally reading the mind of the illusions and delusions and self deceit and wishful thinking, and uh, paradoxically, it results in a tremendous explosion of joy and freedom and ability to enjoy life. But uh, but still, the authentic spirituality is as much truth oriented as it is experience oriented, and so from time to time, and so at a certain time, it's natural to get disillusioned by the woo spirituality, to start having the feeling that there's there's a lot of bullshit there. There's something there that isn't quite right, and it doesn't feel quite right. So I actually have a lot of students who have a history with this specific kind of brand of spirituality, and a lot of people uh, are also critical of that, but it could be, in an important stage for some.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that sometimes this word truth sounds like some special spiritual thing. I'm seeking truth. But to
Mhm.
me, because the human struggle is the most important, it seems that to me, truth is literally about, you don't have a problem usually with positive experiences. So, what is the truth about the
Mhm.
negative experiences? That's actually
Mhm.
truth. But often people think, oh, I'm seeking truth as if it's this special thing and it has nothing to do with the
Mhm.
human.
That's a great observation, and this is a great observation. I'm very glad that you mentioned it. No, actually, the truth is in quite a literal sense, in quite a literal sense. It becomes personal. In the beginning, this relationship with truth is esoteric, as you describe, right, and can be philosophical, as you describe. Like, for example, it is true that we literally don't know anything. We can predict some things, right? We can observe some things we know with a certain amount of certainty. Uh, but it is true that there is no absolute statements. Actually, interestingly enough, science understands it, right? Any scientist will tell you that, yeah, it's quite possible that all air molecules in the room will suddenly go to one side of it, and then you will suffocate. It's just that the probability of it is so minuscule that you would have to, it's not likely to ever have happened in our universe. So everything is a question of probability, right? So similarly speaking, as you just discover truth and other esoteric truths, such as I am consciousness, this is much more true than I am the human being. I mean, it is much more true than I am the ego, I meant to say, right? So, and everything unfolds in consciousness, and consciousness is the container of all experience, and that is the truth, right? And there's a source which we all share, the source of being, the ground of being. So lots of like those truths of esoteric or philosophical nature, they're experienced especially in the beginning of the journey. And it's very easy to kind of end up in this solipsistic state. There are even people who would describe their state of consciousness as, all I know is I exist. I don't even know if you exist. I don't even know if you're conscious. Like, all I know is that I exist. And I mean, yes, there is some truth to that, but it's also deceitful. It's also kind of, it's being stuck in this solipsistic view of the world, which basically says there is no truth other than uh, uh, kind of the fact of my existence, right? Right. Everything else is up for grabs. It's the same absurd statement as the statement about air molecules arranging themselves in one room. So that's not in one side of the room. So that's not exactly the end of the spirituality. That's actually the beginning of it, because consciousness as a foundation uh, allows you for fearless exploration of your experience, and the sinking into the unknown, letting go of the beliefs about anything with certainty also allows you for deeper exploration of your psyche and the conditioning of the ego. But then after a certain point of time, after there's kind of this shift, this perspective shift has happened. Oh, I thought I knew. I thought I knew what reality is like. I thought I knew myself. Now I realize that I don't know. Then what tends to happen is that we begin to explore things on a very personal level, and the truths has become very personal.
Yeah.
Why did I behave this way? Like, right? So why am I so harsh towards myself, for example? Why did I hurt this individual? Why did I become angry? Why am I afraid of this and that? And that becomes very personal. And it's not like there are no answers to those questions. They're usually related to the unresolved experiences of the past, and the suppression and repression and denial, uh, ign- ignoring our experience, denying what has happened to us, repressing the emotion, repressing fear, repressing anger, repressing grief, and as a result of that, seeing a world in a kind of distorted through kind of distorted lens. So when this lens becomes to disappear, it becomes literally very much about the truth of each situation, how it affected you, how it affected the other, how you see it, how the others see it. Is there some commonality? So it becomes a very relational, very very social, I would say, journey.
Yeah, I think you touched on this already, but it's the first thing that I have written down. So I think it's the most common, I guess you could call spiritual bypass, which is
Mm,
to chase the enlightened state. And then how people do that is, first of all, they by rejecting everything that is negative. So they kind of try to jump
yeah.
over. And what I also wrote down here is, which is it's almost a sophisticated bypass. It is when you discover awareness, and I guess it hasn't become abiding, and you kind of through concentration you escape the pain by focusing on awareness. And so I think that that's kind of interesting that some people do that. And so if they feel anything, they I guess they awareness is on itself, and then you kind of if you do that enough, if you have some fear or whatever, it just goes away, and then people, oh, this is the answer. And so the same thing with meditation. So some people literally think that if you're feeling something uncomfortable, meditation is to literally calm yourself down to make it go away. And so this is very common.
Yes, I mean, I don't even know what to add because you have described it very well. I mean, yes, exactly. This is extremely common. This is a very common mistake. So, and the mistake is that. kind of when we first find awareness and we first discover it, there are kind of two realizations that happen. First of all, we understand viscerally on the experiential level that awareness is the source of peace, right? And awareness doesn't suffer, right? So awareness is home, awareness is peace, awareness is love. And the other one is that what we thought we were doesn't exist. So the in truth, that's the realization about the ego, right? So the ego is a construct of the mind that believes to be uh, itself to be a certain kind of individual that uh, needs to behave a certain way, right? Like, for example, the gender identity of the ego. I am a man, so that means that in this situations I behave this way, and then if I behave differently, then I need to be shamed, right? Or I'm shameful. I'm not man enough. This hurts me because my behavior doesn't conform to some sort of identity. So that's what the ego is. So the ego doesn't exist, yes, but from the perspective of awareness, it's very easy to kind of get into this trap of the whole human doesn't exist, right? And the whole human suffering and the whole human's experience is actually not important compared to awareness. And coupled with this previous realization that awareness is a source of peace, every time the human experiences unpeace, then all I need to do is to remind myself that I am awareness and go into this awareness and sort of wait it out there. And the human's unpeace and the human's suffering doesn't matter at all. This is actually a very delusional state, because that's not how the true spiritual journey unfolds. It's not what it's about. Uh, what it's about is that the only way that you can say that human isn't real is in the same way that that you're ultimately going to die, so that you are a temporary collection of phenomena, right? A temporary, in the same way that science describes it, right? So you're a temporary collection of atoms forged in the supernova stars billions of years ago, uh, coming together in a mind blowing, absolutely incredible set of circumstances for an extraordinary brief amount of time when we compare it to the length of the universe. And from that perspective, yes, you can say from that perspective, the human doesn't exist. But for as long as you're alive, the human actually exists, right?
Yeah.
What literally doesn't exist is the ego. What literally doesn't exist is the self-concept, and it only exists to the extent that you believe it, right? The body cannot be said to only exist to the extent that you believe it. I mean, yes, when you realize yourself to be awareness, you kind of let go of the body, but what you're really letting go of uh, is you letting go of the image of the body. And you may feel like bodiless, disembodied awareness. That's because you let go of the image of the body. Even if you're in this state, and if I come towards you and poke you in your chest, you will feel it, right? So you cannot say my body exists for only for as long as you believe it, because even if you don't believe it, if I poke it, you will feel it. The ego, on the other hand, is actually very different. It's literally, right? So, like, the extent to which I say, uh, you are not man enough, you need to man up because, like, you don't do this and that, or like, you're too sensitive, you cry too easily, what kind of a man are you, right? So the extent to which it hurts is the extent to which that you believe this concept that I'm only lovable if I'm a good enough man, and in order to be a good enough man, you need to be this and that. If you don't believe it at all, and dropping these beliefs actually also involves realizing how much you've been hurting yourself with it, how much other people have been hurting yourself with it, and it includes, it implies fear, it implies anger, or usually it implies lots of grief about how you used to live life like this. But But when this is all said and done and you don't believe this at all, then those comments just don't hurt you at all, right? So the ego literally doesn't exist. It literally exists only to the extent that you believe it. And so from this perspective, running away from the suffering of the ego, from the unpleasantness, from the emotional, from being triggered, basically, from the emotional suffering into awareness, is never letting yourself actually investigate the ego and never letting yourself actually dissolve the ego in the light of awareness through love, right? That is absolutely spiritual bypassing, yes. And unfortunately, very many people are engaged in it because it's unpleasant.
Hmm.
You see, because it's unpleasant. So many people look towards spirituality as a way to acquire some tools to feel a little bit better. But the interesting thing about spirituality is that it kind of puts everything on its head, uh, and it contains many of these paradoxes. Like, for example, in order to permanently feel better, you need to thoroughly investigate and fully allow yourself to feel bad, right?
Yeah.
And you cannot, for example, let go of anything for as long as it's still unacknowledged. If you're refusing to acknowledge your anger, for example, if you're refusing to acknowledge your fear or your despair or your grief, it will always be there knocking, and the next time the situation happens which touches this point, it will try to come up, and you will also try to run away, you will try to push it down, and you will always be in this kind of circle. So authentic spirituality requires kind of a very deep commitment to truth that is stronger than the discomforts that you will feel. I'm not, of course, talking about putting yourself in physically dangerous situations, but the emotional discomfort, the energetic discomfort that arises in meditation, that arises in spiritual practice, fear, which you have already mentioned, you went through a lot of it too. All of this will happen on the way of getting closer and closer to truth. And as you investigate the egoic experience, you will invariably see some things about yourself that are difficult to see. And fear usually covers it, But so people who attempt to kind of, oh, that's just the ego, that's not me, that absolutely doesn't matter. Well, if it didn't matter, the mind wouldn't ruminate on it. So if the mind continuously ruminates on it, then it does matter from some perspective, and it would be interesting to find out why do you continuously ruminate on something, right? So what is hiding behind this level of thought? And it actually happens in long enough, in people who are sufficiently awakened and in long enough meditation. Even if you start meditation with lots of thought, uh, then as you continue the meditation, you will start experiencing emotions. The emotions that you didn't even knew were there, or some other experiences that are more intense than this kind of surface level of continuous thought. Because that's the layers of reality, Because the mind tries to cover everything, all the discomfort and all the woundedness, with continuous blabbering, which oftentimes is not accurate at all, and it corresponds to the beliefs that we hold, right? And then underneath it, there is a lot of emotion, and then even deeper, there is love, peace, and awareness. And what happens with a lot of people is that they make this journey once or twice, and of course, when before they found awareness, they would also say, yes, I've experienced a lot of fear and blah blah blah. And so they understand this journey on some level, right? So there's rumination, there's emotional suppression, then there's love and peace and unity of awareness, and as a result of that, the awareness is somewhat present, but then each time they're supposed to do it more and again and again and again and again, meditate through the difficulty, meditate through bring up the emotions, explore the emotions, let the emotions run the way fully. They, instead of doing this, they try to skip right away into awareness, and that becomes a mechanism of suppression.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on, um, I guess that the ego is a, you can confirm this, is emotional memory that's in the nervous system.
Yep.
And then it's sort of a reservoir. I mean, from watching all of everything that you've said, there's like a reservoir. I guess it's fear, anger, and grief, sadness, the major three. And then what people are trying to do is they're trying to just kind of hold on to awareness. Whereas I think
Yep.
the real process is you kind of burning through that reservoir. And then the more that,
That's
the less there is, the more that you notice that the natural state has always been here. And what was kind of blocking that experience was the reservoir, right?
that's exactly right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's exactly right. Uh, I mean, it actually even follows logically. If we consider it the natural state, then it doesn't need our attention. Awareness itself doesn't need our attention because it's always and effortlessly present. It may need our attention in the beginning, and the way that the reason this is true is what's really happening is that you're also learning not to be continuously glued in your attention to the mind, to the stories of the mind. So the attention can go into awareness, it can go into breath, it can go into emotions, but you kind of relaxing your the ability of the attention to go elsewhere. but but awareness is effortless. So if you are fixating, if you're always trying to fixate your attention of awareness, if you like on awareness, if you're like, oh, okay, uh, I don't feel very well, right? Or like, oh, I think maybe I'm falling back in my spiritual journey. Where is awareness? Where is awareness? Let me fixate the attention on awareness. Then necessarily you are suppressing something else. Necessarily you're trying to run away from something else. And yes, that's actually true, that the only reason awareness is not completely effortlessly obvious and always and forever present, and it doesn't even occur to answer questions about it. The only reason this is not true for most people, and including for me before enlightenment, was that there was a very significant amount of suppressed emotion, suppressed reaction to mistreatment, a lot of beliefs about how I should be and how I shouldn't show them, and what things I should experience and what things I shouldn't, and a lot of rumination in the mind on top of it, trying to kind of logically figure it all out, or control the future, or ruminate on the past. And once this started to unravel, the more it unraveled and unfolded, the more obvious and effortless the presence of awareness became.
Another question that I had, I think it's very interesting for everyone, is about psychedelics. So
Mm.
I don't have too much experience with it. The first time that I did it was at a retreat, three different times. The second time was, they called it the deep dive. And what happened to me there was traumatizing. I would say, I
Mm.
think you say something like, the ideal amount is not, you're not comfortable with it, but it's not insanely overwhelming. And that's what happened to
Yeah.
me. So when that
Yeah.
happened, the terror was, I never imagined that that was even possible to experience.
Yeah.
And after, so after that, I spent the next 3 years. My situation is a little bit rare. I have kind of been able to focus entirely on this, and kind of in a situation where I think it's the absolute worst for the ego in terms of failing at everything and relationship and all this stuff. And so I spent 3 years basically processing. I think I sobbed every day for 3 years, and so much rage and fear. And so recently, I started, I was very scared because of how traumatizing it was. So I started with gummies. And so I did half a gummy, which was 2.5 milligrams. Then I did one.
THC.
Go ahead. Yeah.
THC
Yeah.
gummies.
Just pure, I think it's called sativa without the other one.
Mhm.
And so the half a gummy. So what I want to share is that I noticed, I think I had processed so much emotion that taking the first few, I noticed that it just made me more high, and that's when I confirmed that my normal state is a little bit high, and then it just made me more high. But then I did half, and then a whole gummy. A whole gummy was a little bit more, but still just high. And when I took two, which was 10 milligrams, um, it was as if I had taken LSD, basically.
Yep.
And it was so I was back to the same level of terror. What was I going to share about that? I was going to actually ask you is oh that what I noticed is that these substances, and you can confirm for me, is all that they're doing is kind of pushing you to chemically experience enlightenment. So it may be the bigger the dose or LSD, the more it's pushing you to the five senses, and then everything becomes even more crisp and more beautiful. But then if it's too much, the ego starts, coming. It can't just be the senses. All of this must be real, and then you start experiencing. So I think it's fascinating to see that these drugs or substances are not creating any experience. They're just kind of revealing what's always there. And then when it's too much, then everything you basically trip on your own stuff. It's not the drug that's making you trip necessarily. You're tripping on your own insanity, your own pain. That's how I experienced it.
That's actually very true. That's a good description. Yeah, they um, so uh, so you can describe it this way, right? And you can also describe it somewhat differently. You could say that the reality of consciousness, the peace, at least, right? So we're not talking about state where something's happening to you, right? So we are talking about the situation where everything is objectively fine,
Yeah.
but either you're meditating or doing psychedelics, and then suddenly there's not no peace at all, right? So in the situation where everything is objectively fine, uh, the bliss, love, and peace of consciousness, and the crispness and enjoyability, so to say, the joyfulness, the beauty of five fundamental senses is our natural state.
Hmm.
And so, yes, psychedelics push you towards that. So you could say that this is a fundamental foundational reality. So that's exactly the reason, right? Because I'm always in this reality. That's exactly the reason that even like super massive doses of LSD do not disturb my mind too much, right? So I could like maybe cry for a little while. I may feel some difference, but generally speaking, even like extreme doses, like the doses that most people would go absolutely crazy, it's because I'm very deeply rooted in this fundamental reality. But then, right on top of that, there's a reality of mind, right? And the reality of mind, first of all, there's a lot of intellectualization and rumination, and then there's a lot of suppressed emotions, because emotions actually are also uh, physical sensations, right? So if we are speaking about the dream state, if we're speaking about the separated state as a state where you routinely ignore or deny your emotions, you cannot at the same time not condition yourself to not routinely ignore or deny the physical sensations of your
Hmm.
body, the senses.
Yeah.
How else, right? Because an emotion is a physical manifestation, right? And so because we deny them so thoroughly, and the only way to actually start uh, uh, ignoring them, right, is go and try to hide in the mind and continuously intellectualize everything, and refuse to feel other things. So you can say that compared to the enlightened state, most people in the separated state live in a state of dissociation,
Hmm.
and that was my experience too. And so and so what psychedelics do is they kind of you kind of experience a journey through those layers. So oftentimes, right in the very beginning of the trip, and you will notice that there's an arc
Mm,
to the trip, right? So it's not like it never happens. So what you are describing, right? So there's a sentence and there's the ego backlash. Yes, you actually can describe it this way, but what you notice is that it never happens exactly this way time wise, right? It's not like you go like you take psychedelic and you immediately go into this clarity and crispness and peace and everything, and then 2 hours later the ego's like, oh, now we're gonna suffer. No, right? The suffering is comes first, right? So you kind of go through this journey of the layers of reality. So first, a lot of people when they take a psychedelic, a lot of people experience lots of mind activity, right? Hallucinations, even before the emotional release, and the hallucinations sometimes during, sometimes with, right? So with emotions, right? But oftentimes uh, just colors or images or very rapid thinking, some thought loops, right? So hallucination is just a visual thought, basically. So you go through, especially it's evident on THC, I would say. So on THC, kind of this layer on LSD too, but this the first layer of elevated mind activity is very relevant. Then is very obvious. Then what tends to happen is that you kind of get into the emotional territory. So you start feeling things that you didn't feel before, right? You start feeling fear. You maybe start some realization may start coming. You might start uh, experiencing anger. You might start crying. There could be some grief. So there's some emotional release, and after the emotional release, there's this plateau stage. There's this stage where things are, as you described, right? So there's lowered activity of the mind, less activity of the mind. Things become quiet, things become peaceful, things become less emotional, and the senses become more crisp and enjoyable, right? So, yeah, that's kind of a journey to the enlightened state. It comes through, it's always, I say the enlightenment is the journey from the mind through the heart back into the body, back into the five senses, right? So the mind is all the stories and the beliefs that continuously are spinning there, trying to not make you feel things that you don't want to feel. The heart is everything that you suppress to deny it, every emotion that you suppress to deny it. And then you go back into this kind of peace and enjoyment of five senses. Every sufficiently long meditation session will have the same arc. Every sufficiently intense psychedelic trip has the same arc. And so that's why there are so many people who went through this journey once and they think that's enlightenment. So enlightenment is when the same journey happens in life on the scale of years and in a permanent way. But every just like meditation takes you there, if you meditate for a few days in a row, a psychedelic also takes you there. And every time you experience this journey, uh, the you do a certain amount of work, right? So you do a certain amount of emotional release. You relax resistance to difficult emotional experience one way or the other. You realize understand something about yourself. So that's why meditation continues to work, psychedelics continues to work. And if we're speaking about a very, very deep, fully realized enlightened state, then in this state, meditation doesn't bring much and psychedelics don't bring much. But your observation is correct. And also you make an interesting observation that after awakening, THC, at the very least, edible THC, becomes very much like LSD, right? Because the structure is the same, right? So you go through the layer of the mind into the unconscious, into the repressed emotions, and then there's some deeper peace and relaxation. So THC has some side effects, I would say, that LSD doesn't. It's a different substance. But the psychedelic aspect of it is very much the same. So yeah.
Yeah, I just it was just funny to me when I took it. I thought this is so beyond uncomfortable. Like you said, not super overwhelming, but definitely something that you're not comfortable with. And it just went. I guess I was just ready for it because it's 3 years of processing emotions and not touching any. But yeah, it really surprised me. Um, so the other question that I have here is, just see here.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. I forgot to. I mean, now you commented it. I remember. Yeah, I forgot to comment on this first part. Yeah, you're right. So when it comes to psychedelics, my recommendation is uh, don't take the dose that completely overwhelms you. It's very easy to overwhelm. Oftentimes, it becomes even easier in the awakened state, because in the awakened state, more things are very readily at the surface of consciousness, so to speak, right? So we become more sensitive, more open, right? Like, for example, if you are already in the state, if you've been sobbing for 3 years every day, you were very sensitive during this time. You were very open, right? A lot of things were coming from the unconscious to become conscious, and you were grieving a lot of things that you were in denial of before.
Yeah,
So the process was already there. So if you many people, and my prior self included, at this stage, even if you take a very small amount of psychedelic, it could be very, very intense, compared to, let's say, in the separated state, which could be just some interesting experience, but nothing like really emotionally difficult and intense. So it's very easy to overwhelm yourself with psychedelics. One needs to be careful. They only kind of uh, I mean, I had some trepidation or fear before taking LSD, for example, for many years. I mean, only like a few years ago, basically, I stopped having and I stopped experiencing any fear on it. But the best kind of dose is the one that is challenging somewhat, right? But the one that doesn't completely overwhelm you, because then the mind tends to view the experience as traumatic,
yeah,
uh, forms a lot of associations with it, right? And it's very difficult to learn something when it's overwhelming. It just feels like, if you spend most of the psychedelic trip in the state of when it's going to be over, you're not actually learning. Like remember the time uh, when that you mentioned, like that when you cried every day for a few years. I am willing to bet, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it wasn't just completely random tears out of the blue, right? You cried about something that you had a misconception about, or misunderstanding about, or other people had misunderstanding about, and therefore they behaved in a way that were cruel. So you were grieving ignorance, basically. Am I right?
yes, yeah, absolutely.
So something similar happens on psychedelics. So if the dosage is right, then it's the same idea, it's the same process. The insight come about how, like, what is really true, and the emotions associated with false beliefs also come, and you kind of get that the process is the same. If it is so overwhelming, if it is so intense that you don't get that, you just when this is going to be over, then definitely the dose of too much. So it's a window of actually conscious learning and appreciation of what is happening, because what is happening is dissolving of the false, in order for the truth to come through, in order for the truth to shine.
Yeah, I have another question. Okay, so it's about fear, and maybe you have an example from your experience. But we have fears, especially with people and all these things. But I wanted to talk about these kind of strange fears.
Mm.
And so it seems like the more open you become, you can almost tap into what suffering would be like, even on a physical level, because I feel that. So my example is let's say I'm cooking and I have an electric stove, and when it gets very very hot, it's very red. And if your arm is close, you can feel the heat, right? And so in my mind, what has always been kind of coming up is, imagine if somebody pressed your arm on that, and let's say that I very mildly burn my hand just touching something hot, and you know how it burns for a little bit. And so my mind says, can you imagine how excruciating that would be? And that alone, it's almost like I'm about to experience it, and it almost terrorizes me. So in this example of, I guess, a mixture of excruciating pain and not able to get out, which is, I guess, some kind of trauma. Do you remember any kind of fear like that that's kind of out of the ordinary, because it's not happening, it's not with a person, it's not. Do you remember something like that or similar?
Yes, yes, of course, and not only with me, but with many people. I mean, what you're describing doesn't actually surprise me. Uh, here's the interesting thing. So uh, so fear, strictly speaking, right? So fear has a function. So fear in the natural world is anticipation of pain, right? So fear is what you experience when you're about to get hurt, and so it provokes a response, to the run away, prepare. It can be morphed into anger, to fight, right? But that's basically what fear is. Now, interestingly enough, uh, this actually doesn't apply to your case, because you weren't about to get hurt. So what tends to happen is that in the mind, right, uh, on the spiritual journey, uh, fear on the spiritual journey is also kind of anticipation of pain, but it's not anticipation of physical pain, but it's anticipation of emotional pain. So that's why we can experience fear when we meditate uh, for a long time, or in situations like what you described, where absolutely nothing threatens the body or about to threaten the body, but we still experience fear. So what is it? So we're not actually afraid that something is going to happen to you. That's the mind's story. We are afraid of seeing the deeper truths, including, for example, the one that you cannot control and you don't know, and maybe something like this will happen to you, and experiencing the emotions that we don't like to experiencing, and oftentimes experiencing the fear itself, right? So we are afraid of a difficult, unpleasant mind slash emotion experience, which doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the body, or with the external circumstance. The reason it comes up, even in the situation where the external circumstance is completely fine, is because it's about unresolved past. It's about dropping the illusions that you had carried with you in the past, right? But and so but but the interesting thing about the mind, the mind is a beautiful intellect. It's a beautiful logical machine. It's trying to help you, right? It's just confused and it's just misdirected. So when the fear comes, the mind uh, looks at external circumstances and it tries to explain why there is so much fear. You see, so the interesting thing is that you can't actually imagine the physical pain,
Yeah,
right? What you were imagining is so you were literally kind of imagining the fear itself of something like this
yeah,
having been done to you, right? And because it's not happening, then what you were actually scared of is the deeper kind of truth of how little you control life,
Yeah.
and how these things could happen. You know, you could get into a plane and the plane could crash. There could be fire. There could be, you could, anyone could die a very painful death. You see, pain is a fact of life, and it's unavoidable. You see, but in the mind's eye, uh, it becomes a story that seemingly kind of have very little correlation with reality.
Yeah.
So different people come up with different stories. You see, so everybody's got their own favorite story. It actually depends on what you have culturally been conditioned to be afraid of. What you were like, for example, a lot of people, myself included, when they uh, experienced this fear, the mind would start telling them stories about cancer.
Mm.
You know, because the society speaks a lot about cancer and everybody's afraid of cancer. So you know, like, there's something slightly, you experience some unusual sensation in the body, and then there's fear, and the first thought to rationalize, to explain this fear, oh, is it cancer, is it cancer, right? So some people, like, for example, they eat something, right, and then they start experiencing fear, for reasons completely unrelated, just as part of their unfolding, for reasons completely unrelated to what happened, and the mind immediately goes into, okay, I maybe I ate something, I can die, you know, maybe I'm poisoned, I have poisoned myself,
Yeah.
right? Some people, when they get very scared, they start imagining, and it also can feel kind of very real, because the mind needs an explanation for this, for this fear, even if this explanation is not accurate, uh, but it is believed at the time. So they experience the story that something is about, like, somebody's angry with them, somebody's about to catch them, somebody's about to kill them, right? So maybe police is about to come and take them into jail, even if they didn't do anything, right? Or some criminals, you see. Of course, all of this also culturally conditioned, whatever past experiences we had, the TV that we watch, you know, we watch TV and then people kill each other, you know, criminals kill victims, police, army, like, all of those scared images are part of our culture every day. So uh, uh, the interesting thing about it is that the more you stay with this fear, the more you allow this fear to come, uh, the more you start seeing that the fear is not necessarily about what the mind is telling it is about in the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's why the mind creates the stories that you can intellectually, after you gone through it, you can intellectually see that they don't kind of make much sense, but but there has to be a story, uh, along with the fear. And if it's not yet clear what the fear is about, the story is going to be about the vicinity, about what is supposedly going on right now, or what you're afraid will happen, you know.
Yeah.
But it will be about something in the observable reality. It can go to incredible lengths to try to kind of bring something in, and explain why the fear, what you're actually afraid of right now.
Yeah. And I guess the final question I have is, so what constitutes more or less a mature teacher, and also how does he or she become even more mature?
um yeah, it's certainly not the realization of consciousness. There are a lot of people with realization of consciousness. I define maturity very simple. I mean, to me, a mature teacher is a teacher that has very little inner pain. So basically, that dissolved uh, the ego to to a large extent, basically. So it's the mind free of pain. It's the mind unburdened by the past, because it is the unresolved past that leads us uh, to misinterpret ourselves and to misinterpret other people, right? And if you and the immaturity, the danger of immaturity of the spiritual teachers is misinterpretation of the student, right? So the more the ego still exists in a teacher, right? And that's actually, by the way, how psychedelics can be a good test. But the more suffering is present in consciousness, the more skewed the view of another person is, and the more likely the teacher is to kind of uh, criticize or be harsh towards someone who is suffering, or on the other hand, be complimentary and congratulatory to those who are actually cruel. And it doesn't mean that a mature teacher never makes the mistake, but to the extent that they have dissolved their own patterns of abuse and victimhood, which are two sides of the same coin, they uh, are free from the pattern of the same mistake. So they can very easily correct the mistake. Whereas the more suffering there exists in the teacher's consciousness, in the teacher's psyche, the more ego exists, the more resistance there would be to correct the mistakes, the more they will be insistent in their righteousness and in their cruelty or in their approval of cruel behavior. And the more they will be dismissive of any criticism or attempts to kind of basically the more of the ego still exists in the teacher, the more they're convinced that they're a saint, basically. And everything they do is for another person's growth. And sometimes being harsh can be useful for another person's growth. But it's the openness. It's always the openness to being wrong, which constitutes true spiritual maturity.
Okay, well, I guess that's all the questions that I have. And wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Artem. And I guess
Thank you,
that,
my friend.
thank you.
Yeah, thank. I enjoyed the questions.
Oh, good.
I uh, I very much enjoyed the conversation. I will also send you the links so that you can post them
Yeah,
in the description. And thank you. It's great for me to know you. It's great that you're part of our community. You've been raising awareness, speaking about your journey, also dismounting some of the myths about spiritual awakening, which is wonderful. I very much wish you success and continued luck in your own work.
thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Steve.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.